Hey guys, my name is Brandon and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you like what you see in here, you're more than welcome to hit the subscribe button so you stay notified every time I upload a new video. Okay, let's get straight on with today's video.
Hey everyone and welcome back to Is That More Brandon. So in today's video I am going to do a quick review to a couple of films that I've watched recently. I think in total it was 4 different films, which ones I would recommend, which ones I wouldn't. I think I'd probably recommend all of them just because they're all so unique and they all tell a different story, but one of them kind of didn't really make sense until the end. For those of you that are aware of the whole Squid Game series, Squid Game 3, so series 3 came out. So you've obviously got your main character. If you don't want any spoilers, obviously don't continue watching, but at the end of series 2 he kind of was on a plane to go back home. You know, he'd just done 2 rounds of the games and you know it was time for him to go home. He had that flight and then he had that phone call asking him if he wanted to play the game again, so he ended up coming back again for a 3rd time. And then throughout this 3rd series we kind of see him, you know, like meeting other characters, making friends, you know, making enemies who kind of turn into friends, and all just different storylines. So yeah, I think for me it was kind of, I think the whole Squid Game series is kind of that thing of, you know, it's not necessarily bad people, it's people that have either made mistakes or done wrong or, you know, had a difficult life and they've not dealt with it in the best way, and they're kind of being taught a lesson that, you know, if you do something wrong and if you know, hurt someone or take money from someone or steal or whatever, life is going to punish you, i.e. like it does with 455 of the people until there obviously becomes a winner. So yeah, that's kind of the overall of Squid Game. But I did watch the kind of Squid Game in conversation, so the main guy, the bad guy, and the actual director itself. So they were just having a chat about the film and kind of how they wanted to convey the characters. But I think for me it was a very, very good series. I think series 1 will always be the best, just because it was that new phenomenon, that new, you know, thing of everyone going, oh, what's this? I love competitions and I love games, and so that's basically a game show and an entertainment kind of thriller, sci-fi horror thing merged into one. So yeah, I'll always love the Squid Game franchise, but yeah, I think series 1 was the best because no one had known what it was, and obviously series 3 you kind of understand why said people are in there. So you obviously had a good representation of trans representation, so you had a transgender character, so that was really, really nice to see. Obviously she didn't kind of make it all the way to the end, but it was nice to kind of see again her character evolving and how she helped some of the other characters. So you had like an older lady and her son, so she ended up kind of taking him out of the game because he was going to kill an innocent lady, so it was kind of the mum turned against son kind of vibe. And then you had a girl who obviously gave birth, and her ex-boyfriend, who clearly they weren't on good terms with each other. They were both in the game and he promised he would protect her. He did, and yeah, it got to one part where she twisted her ankle so badly that she just ended the game for herself. She just kind of jumped off the edge and just said goodbye, whatever. But obviously then her baby ended up being a player going through the game, and at the end ended up being, you know, the righteous winner. So I think it's that, yeah, it's just that thing of like the evolving character developments. I think that's a really, really good part of the series. It's kind of, you know, there are 400 plus people in that game. You're not going to be able to have personality traits for every single one, or, you know, a character profile for all of them, but the fact that you have your favourites and then gradually they get whittled down until there's like 1 or 2 that you like left, and then, you know, they all just disappear. And yeah, obviously player 456 didn't actually survive at the end of series 3, so we've seen him progress and we've seen him grow the whole way through. So, you know, to now not see him in the game, it's like, okay, is it that the baby's going to come back and become kind of like the voice? Will the baby end up becoming a player? You know, will it be adopted by someone and then they end up being in the game? So who knows what's going to happen. So you had the kind of Squid Game action happening, and then you also had like the people on the boat and the people that were trying to find the island. You know, one of the guys was in the Squid Game and he managed to escape somehow, so he obviously wanted to go back to kind of work out where the games were taking place to kind of get them to stop, because, you know, it's taken innocent people's lives. So it was a very interesting series, like I said, very, very interesting. And yeah, it was just nice, like I said, just to see that character development, and yeah, to kind of just see all the different mini storylines going on in the film. So the other 4
films were from 4 completely different years. So the first film was called There Is Someone in Your House, or There's Someone in Your House. That was from 2021, and that was basically a kind of like horror, kind of murder kind of film. It basically was just a bunch of young people in a school, and somebody on the basketball team or the football team had a problem with people and was kind of exposing their pasts, and also then ended up taking those people out of the real world, basically. So the whole film was kind of working out who was it, who didn't like the other students, who didn't like the players, and you know, who was it that was kind of being fake, because you had this kind of like group of nerds, which included the main character, which is a black girl. So she had her group of friends, and you know, she already had hid her past because she got captured by a bunch of girls, and they ended up all just turning against each other, and she ended up pushing the girl into the fire. So that was kind of her bad energy from the past. So she actually ended up changing her name and moving to a brand new town. So she was kind of joining this nerdy group as an outsider. And then throughout the film, yeah, you just kind of see, you know, a football guy gets killed. One of the girls at the school, who seems quite posh and very smart, she gets taken out. And the whole way through, obviously the main character, so the black girl, her ex-boyfriend kind of always just seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then even towards the end, even she thinks that it's him, but when the person actually ends up revealing themselves, you kind of go, well, hang on, that doesn't really make sense, because that person was friends with the other people. And you know, a lot of nice characters go along the way. So yeah, it's one of those films that you just don't know what's going to happen. It wasn't necessarily that it was scary, it was more just that it was kind of like it was like Cluedo, kind of working out who was killing all these innocent people and what their motive was. And it kind of turned out that, you know, whatever these people had done in their past, this person was exposing them, being like, actually, I don't like this person because of this, this and this. So for one of the football guys, it was you know, photos of him beating somebody up. For the girl that ended up getting killed in the church, it was kind of a voice note or a podcast of something she said about something. So again, that was just played out while everyone came in to see the aftermath of her death. You had the young guy Rodrigo. I'm not too sure why the killer decided to take him out. Maybe because, you know, he fell in love with one of that guy's friends, or he just didn't like him as a student or a person, or he was too smart or whatever. So again, Rodrigo, very nice character, innocent character, and just got taken out for whatever reason. So yeah, very, very interesting film. Like I said, it's more of a kind of trying to work out who it was. Obviously it was like 4 years ago, so there are probably more current films that these people have been in, but it was, yeah, still a good film nonetheless. So yeah, definitely would recommend watching that as well. It's just more of a thinking about it. The next film, I was very shocked that I hadn't already seen something like this, or that something hadn't kind of been like a season 2, 3, 4. So this was actually a film from 2015. So I know it was quite a long time ago, 10 years in fact. But it was called Circle, and I don't know how I ended up finding it. I think I just typed in The Circle because I loved the TV show The Circle, which has obviously now been discontinued in the UK. But I just typed in Circle, or I think I must have just typed in like game or something, and it came up, and it was basically a bunch of people that for some reason were in this dark room, and every 2 minutes you'd hear like, not like a siren, but like a noise to kind of signify the end of the round, and somebody would be taken out. And I think the aim of the game was for the people in there to work out why it was them that were chosen, and how this machine thing was choosing who was kind of in and out of the game. So you had one person, you know, talking a lot, giving a lot of information about themselves because they wanted to do introductions and stuff. So she was talking a lot about herself, la la la, and at the end of the 2 minutes, she got killed. So, you know, she'd just given all the information, all the effort, and actually was kind of just a waste of time. And then you had one of the black guys step forward saying, you know, let's just take it all the black people next, because you had someone saying go for the old people, and then he was like, oh, why don't you just take out the black people? So I think because they were all stuck in a room, and if they were to move off of their little spot, they would die. If people didn't step forward, then, you know, they would have to just try and work out how the voting was happening. So I think eventually they all worked out that it was them that were voting. So wherever they moved their hand, it was deciding who they were voting for, with that telepathy and whatever. So yeah, you had a husband and wife who weren't really husband and wife, they were just pretending to be a couple. And then, you know, you had an ex-husband and wife who obviously knew each other as work colleagues, but there was just a lot of intertwining changes. You had like an old guy who was kind of like shouting and moaning. You had a young guy who was saying, let's just get all the old people out, and obviously then the old people turned against him. You had a couple of people that just sacrificed themselves, that just like, you know, I'm going to just go, whatever. And yeah, it was a very interesting end as well as a beginning, because right at the beginning, one of the male characters kind of explained what he thought was going on, and then right at the end, he ended up being the one to win that circle. So I think, again, the premise of that is there was lots of different circles going on, kind of teaching people a lesson, or wanting to see how people communicated with each other, or how they dealt with different situations, or the different issues that we have within society. And obviously when this guy came out, there was a lot of individuals and there was a lot of mums and kids, so it was kind of trying to work out how different people in their different circles won the game. Because if you think about it, every round someone got eliminated, and when there was one person left, that person couldn't eliminate themselves, so they were the winner. And then yeah, so obviously as he's gone through to the end, it was a very, very smart move. So again, spoiler alert if you don't want to get the, you know, the film spoiled, but there was basically a little girl and a mum who was obviously pregnant, and this guy, and throughout the entire game they were working out they need to get rid of the kid and they need to get rid of the mum, because at the end obviously one of the two of them is going to win, and it will be too difficult of a decision because they won't vote for each other. So they were kind of, you know, trying to work out, do they have the right amount of numbers to vote them out, and then people would switch votes and people would make out that they voted when actually they didn't. He had a guy towards the end who didn't even say anything, he was just mute the whole time, so obviously he knew his fate. And yeah, and then you had like 6 people go out at the same time, so it was a bit of a chaotic film, to be fair. Very simple idea, but yeah, right at the end the little girl was like, oh, it's okay, I'll sacrifice myself. And the guy was very smart, he kind of thought 2 steps ahead, because as she took a step forward, he voted to get rid of the mum, which obviously meant that the girl died because she stood off her circle. The mum died because obviously she had the only vote in that round, but because her baby was alive, it was between him and the baby, and obviously the only person that could vote was him, so he voted the baby out. The baby obviously died. So yeah, again, it's another one of those films that the baby almost took the winnings of that game. But yeah, like I said, as he came out of, you know, that winning circle, there was a lot of other parents with children or just individuals, and you can kind of see, was it like him being selfish to want to get out and, you know, blagging his way through, saying yeah he's going to save the kid and this, whereas loads of other innocent people were out of the game as well. So yeah, it was a bit of a muddle of a film, but like I said, very, very simple. It was just 2 minutes every round, someone dies, work out how not to die, or how not to get involved in an argument, or, you know, how to play the game, like how much information do you give about yourself. If you're silent, you die. If you give too much, you die. So yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one, but absolutely loved that film. So if you're into films that require you to think, or, you know, find favourite characters, that is definitely one to watch. Like I said, it was from 10 years ago, but still an amazing film, and I'm surprised I never found it within the last 10 years. The third film was called Dark Game. So this was from 2024. It is literally what it says on the title. It was a dark game. So basically it was a guy who was obviously some sort of content creator or streamer, and he was anonymous. He had like a mask on with gloves and whatever, and he was basically streaming these really gruesome games, whether it was like rock paper scissors or like a drinking game or whatever, and if these people got eliminated, they got killed. So they either had to shoot themselves, he would shoot them, somebody in the live chat would decide their fate of how they were going to die. So again, it was a very gruesome film, very weird, but then again you also had the other half of the story, which was the policemen, the policewomen, the agents, the CIA, whatever, all trying to find this place to take it down, basically, because innocent people were dying. So yeah, every so often you would kind of have little flashbacks, and you'd see how some of the people ended up in there. So there was a Ukrainian lady who just started her new day at a job, and she went out for a drink with one of her work colleagues, which I thought was a bit dodgy, because I was like, because she wanted to go home, but the woman was so persistent to take her for a drink. She ended up getting drunk, walking down an alleyway by herself, and then being captured and put into the game. And we didn't find out until the end that she was actually working for the guy who owned that live stream. So yeah, she was very, like I said, I had a feeling that she was dodgy, but you just don't know until the end. I thought, okay, maybe genuinely she was just a nice person, but she wasn't. And then you had the policeman. So Ed Westwick was obviously his actual name. I can't remember what the character was called. Mr. Detective Rogers or whatever his name was. And again, they had a prisoner help them to try and get into this game, but he said even he wouldn't be able to do some of the stuff that this guy's doing because he's just crazy and he's just a showman, and he wants people to watch his watch his shows and watch his viewings and, you know, get his popularity up. One of the other interesting aspects was there was a woman. So it basically showed you, almost like Gogglebox, it showed you little clips of people tuning into these shows from around the world, and there was a woman with her husband or whatever. She was like, oh, I'm just watching this stupid American game. And then you see 15 minutes later, she ends up being one of those abducted and in the game. And she was like, oh, I've seen this game online. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be part of this game. So he was like, oh, at least you know me. So yeah, she was just screaming and moaning and the rest of it. But basically at the end, the Ukrainian lady who got kidnapped from the alleyway ends up becoming free. The detective ends up actually kind of being involved within the game because he ended up... there was 2 people hung, about to die basically, and the person in charge of the games was just like, pick a number, detective, 1 or 2. He picked 1 number and the person ended up killing the other person. So he was just, again, not even following the rules of the policeman. And then yeah, the voice of the guy was in like some sort of mask. Detective obviously shot at that person. That wasn't the voice of the showman, that was the voice of one of the other players who he'd basically just killed. So all over the newspaper, policeman killed woman in whatever. So yeah, it made him look bad. But then again, they eventually got out, they got this Ukrainian lady out, but we still haven't seen where this dark, you know, showman guy has gone, because we never saw him die, we never saw him escape, so we don't really know where he is or where he's gone. So yeah, that was a film that came out last year. Again, some of these films, they've either come out so long ago that either a series 2 has already come out, or they just did it as a standalone film and then that's that, left it. But I think something like that may have a part 2, because, you know, like I said, we didn't see the main guy die and we didn't see the main guy escape or go to prison, so he's definitely out there somewhere. So he's probably planning some more games. Yeah, he's probably planning some more games. So like I said, that was a bit of a scary, bit of a weird film. But again, it was still a very, you know, trying to work out all the people that were getting involved. Were they actually helping? And, you know, the people downstairs, like the prisoners and the people that were involved in the games, how many of them were going to survive? Who was going to die? So yeah, it was a bit of a difficult one to watch as well. And it's just weird seeing all those. I know obviously all those comments were fake of like, you know, kill this woman and, you know, this person's ugly and this, but you got to imagine on the dark web, this is what types of people there are out there. People that are weird, people that want dodgy stuff to happen, people that are not scared of, you know, hurting other people. So yeah, I think that's kind of what he was saying, that, you know, these games were being held on the other internet as opposed to, you know, your normal like Google and Chrome or whatever. So yeah, bit weird, but he's going to come back and he's going to start some more games at some point soon. And then the final film that I watched, so this was actually a couple of days ago. I actually went to go visit my friend up north, so we chilled for a little bit and we ended up watching a horror film together. So this was called The Grudge, and it wasn't as good as we thought it was going to be. If not, it was a bit naff, but that's until we kind of got into the last 25 minutes of the film, when actually everything we'd watched started making sense, because we were like, oh, that's why that happened, oh, that's why that happened. So yeah, it was very much there was just a lot going on, but then also nothing going on at the same time. But yeah, as it got towards the end, we kind of worked out, right, this is why this character did this, and this is why, you know, this was really important. And, you know, the kids from when they were younger, as they ended up getting to adults, is why this part of the story actually seemed to work. Didn't really understand what was going on. There was just a lot of like just weird faces and, you know, things coming out of nowhere. But yeah, it was an interesting film. And there was another one, but I can't remember what it was called. And there was one final film that I need to add onto this list, just because in case I forget about it. It was called No One Gets Out Alive. This was also from 2021. It was also kind of like a horror, scary movie. I think this one was one of my favourites out of this bunch that I've seen so far. Basically, long story short, there was this hostel or hotel that was predominantly just for females, and I think this woman was doing travelling for work, or she was moving country or whatever, and she didn't have the right documents, so she just needed to kind of jump in between places and stay somewhere while she was either getting a job or sorting documents out, things like that. And she met the guy who obviously owned the place, and he introduced her to her room, and this is this, and said, oh, there's nobody else here, just, you know, one other girl downstairs, fine, whatever. And then every so often she would kind of hear noises, and doors would bang and lights would go on and off, and there'd be creaky things in the hallway, and yeah, she would see other people, so she'd be like, oh, I thought it was just two people there. So anyway, the girl downstairs looked as if she was like hypnotised. There was two other girls doing like alcohol and smoking and things like that. Then there's another guy there, and she went to speak to the owner and said, well, hold up, you've lied to me, it is not just me and this other girl here. And then she worked out there was actually other people there, there were spirits, there were, you know, other people in the apartment. And throughout the film there's just a lot of ghosts, ghouls, things from the past. I think the two boys that owned this hotel just wanted women to kind of use them as like a sacrifice for, you know, helping the brother to get well. Apparently he wasn't well, and they needed to sacrifice women to get him to get better. And then I think it was kind of like the mum and the dad who were like doing the haunting, because you could every so often see a woman, and then she would see like little ghost things going on. It was just very spooky, very weird. You just didn't know when the jump scare was going to jump. And then yeah, it got to a point where like she ended up in some sort of fight with the guy, the brother, and yeah, all the girls ended up being captured and taken to this room. And yeah, so she kind of was just at the end of her tether really. But the guy that took her down to this room looked at her and said, you're actually quite lucky that you've been brought into here. So obviously I'm not sure how she interpreted that. Anyway, she was locked in, strapped down, and basically there was this box that had like a lid, and every so often it would just open up and a spirit of some sort would come out. So usually it comes out, it sacrifices the person, it makes whoever's put that person in there a little bit healthier, or, you know, gets rid of one of their negative things of the past, or, you know, whatever. So anyway, she's closed her eyes, this zombie thing has come out of the box, which you think was going to eat her, and somehow she ended up destroying this zombie just with her thoughts and being relaxed and killing it with her mind. And then obviously the roles reversed, because the guy who owned the hostel, she ended up taking him down, strapping him to the bed, he got killed, that was that. So then it was just a matter of killing the brother, and you ended up seeing, I think, somebody jump off of the balcony. So there was just a lot of weird stuff going on at the same time, and yeah, it was a very interesting film. But yeah, like I said, it was almost, I was on edge the entire time thinking, oh my goodness, is the main character going to get out? Like every corner she turns, there's something there, whether it's a spirit, whether it's a door, whether it's another character that wasn't supposed to be in that hostel. And yeah, it basically, I think moral of the story was, you sacrifice something or someone, you revive or, you know, recover from something bad that you may have experienced. So obviously the brother who was ill, his brother was sacrificing girls for him to kind of get him to heal. He didn't heal. And then she obviously sacrificed the guy who owned the hostel to kind of heal her twisted ankle, which she got from like crawling up the stairs to get away from the guy. So yeah, it was one of those things of get rid of something good, and something bad in your life actually will then end up turning good as well. So yeah, all of those films kind of had that same theme of horror and murder and just blood and gore and things like that. I'm waiting for another Saw film to come out, but you know, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. We had the last Saw, I think was 2022 or 2023, I'm not too sure, but I watch every single one of those. Absolutely love that series. So yeah, that was it then. So that was the one series, Squid Game, series 3, and then we had a film from 2021, There's Someone in Your House, 2015, Circle, 2024, Dark Game, 2020, The Grudge, and again 2021, No One Gets Out Alive. So hopefully I've kind of given you a bit of an insight as to the storylines for all of those films. I probably will do more kind of like film reviews like this, where I kind of would just sit, watch some stuff, analyse it in my own time, and then just come back to you with my review. And also it's good for me to kind of, you know, look back on the future and go, oh, I do remember watching that film in this year, and I do remember saying that about that, but actually I've watched the new series or the new film and it's actually so much better or so much worse or whatever. So yeah, if you did enjoy my review, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. If there's any short series, any films, you know, any TV shows or anything that you'd recommend me to watch, nothing that has like 15,000 series or 2 million episodes to catch up on. Like I said, I'm more into kind of like the horror, the, you know, sci-fi, reality, rom-coms and romance. I watch every now and then, or any kind of like gay LGBTQ plus movies. But yeah, I think, yeah, horror and murder and gore and things like that are more my thing, because it allows your brain to kind of be free and explore, and could actually lead to you being creative as well. So yeah, just kind of seeing all these demons and hearing all these sounds and music and doors slamming and people crying and sighing and things like that. So yeah, if you did enjoy my review, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Out of the 6 that I've watched, what is your favourite? Have you watched any of them? And like I said, any suggestions for films, for music, for TV shows, drop them down below and I will get to as many of them as I can. I know this is not as an active channel as some of my other channels, but yeah, just send me some requests and send me some options and I'll try and get to those. But until my next review, thank you for watching, and I'll be back with a video whenever. And until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.